Alright, I am back with a new Destiny 2 video, and a lot of mixed feedback coming in for Lightfall here. I just published my good and bad of Lightfall article today. This is based on me beating the campaign, doing as much post-campaign stuff as I could without starting to do all the pinnacles and stuff for some of the exotic missions, like want you to get up to a higher power level, like to do the public events. On Neomuna, you really want to be a little bit higher because the final boss is like 1810 and it's just exhausting when there's like two people trying to do it. I did it once and like that was enough, so I'm just going to level a little bit. Right now I'm starting, I did a really fast normal run playthrough just to avoid spoilers. Not that anything can really be spoiled because nobody has any idea what the F is going on. That's a video for another day. I'm going to save ending spoilers for, I don't know, at least 48 hours after, so we'll get into that later. Today I want to talk about Strand, and Strand is coming up as something that has kind of gone wrong, but it's weird because at first Strand seemed like it was going to be really good and fun. The way this is set up is Bungie said before the campaign came out that they wanted it integrated into the campaign kind of more than Stasis was. Stasis, you know, to really unlock all the aspects and fragments, it was like this whole thing, you know, after the campaign, and Stasis was like present in the campaign, but it wasn't a huge focus, whereas Strand is really like half the campaign of Lightfall and like figuring out how to use Strand, because this is this new form of, you know, manipulation, like energy manipulation or whatever it is, that no one has ever discovered before. So it's pretty much Osiris and us literally like running experiments to try and figure out, you know, what the deal is with Strand. This manifests itself in the campaign with these segments where you are given temporary Strand powers. And sometimes this can be as short as like, here's a 45-second segment where you do a bunch of grappling, or a lot of the times it's usually like a full combat encounter. And in this process, you are given really good cooldowns, both for your grapple, which takes up your grenade slot, and your melee, and all the melee. I think all the melees have 3 charges. And then sometimes early on, you get like a really fast refilling super in some segments, but I think later on, they don't keep giving you that super, like infinite regen super, especially not in the later few missions where you have Strand for like full-on boss fights. You're not getting a super every like 8 seconds like you are earlier. But those low cooldowns remain, and in addition to that, they have these grapple points pretty much all over every arena, anywhere you would want to use Strand in one of the combat encounters during the campaign. And this is very fun. You will see, you'll probably see a lot of clips on Twitter or YouTube or whatever of people messing around with Strand and all the crazy things you can do, like attaching to each other or like spinning around on a Hydra turret and like all of this wacky stuff. And like the physics of the grappling hook does feel good. It feels like a good addition to the game. I enjoy swinging around and doing the lunge melee after you grapple to do like an AoE clear of enemies. I really liked the melee on my Warlock, the like Scarlet Witch casting thing. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to do like a Necrotic Grips build based on that, like after the campaign's over, now that I actually have Strand. And then I put that on, and then I went to go use Strand, and I'm like, wait a minute, this is way different. And what happens is once you actually unlock Strand as a permanent subclass, all of these crazy fast cooldowns are gone. The grapple has a normal grenade cooldown. I don't know what it is at baseline, but I think it's somewhere between like 90 seconds and 2 minutes at baseline. And then if you have a lot of discipline, maybe it goes down to 60 seconds. And then if you do a ton of stuff about getting your grenade back, maybe it's like every 30 seconds it's up. But that's much different than the, I don't know, 5 to 10 seconds in between grapples that you miss in the campaign. This is also true for melee, because you have 3 charges of these melee, so you figure it'd be a pretty fast charging melee. It's not fast charging at all. It is horrifically slow. And obviously, you know, none of us are really built into strength because strength hasn't been a great option for so long. So for most people, you know, who aren't who specs into strength outside of ridiculously remote builds, like the base cooldown of your melee feels bad. And a lot of people are complaining that in addition to those two things, Strand does also just kind of feel weak at baseline. A lot of people are complaining about kind of the tougher segments in the game later on where you're like required to use Strand, and it feels like it kind of hampers you. And it does hamper you in a way because you can't, it negates whatever exotic armor you're wearing because we don't have any exotic Strand pieces yet. We don't have like a full build out for Strand like we do for whatever subclass we're normally using. But some people are even just like not picking up Strand and trying to do the final boss fights, even though they're very much designed around using Strand without them because they think Strand is underpowered. And it's potentially underpowered even with the crazy low cooldowns. So once you take those away, and now we have these huge cooldowns on especially the grenade and melee that just seem kind of absolutely absurd, it feels very bad to use. Like to the point where I don't even know if I want to like fully commit to Strand and do like a real Strand build until something is fixed here, because this feels really bad. And it's both of them, but I think the grapple is the important thing. I have been always very skeptical of the idea of your grapple replacing your grenade. I saw they said this in the preview. I think they maybe said this in the Vidoc, but like the idea that they came up with is you are the grenade. So you're grappling forward, you're just stopping into a group of enemies, you're doing an AoE clear move, which is great, but again, probably at higher level content, diving into a cluster of, Grandmaster enemies and trying to melee them is not going to work out too well. But even overlooking that, it makes it attached to the grenade cooldown in a way that really doesn't make sense. And like, obviously Bungie is not the first game to ever use a grappling hook. Many games use some form of grappling mechanics. We have the obvious ones like Just Cause and Spider-Man. But the point of using it in those games is that it's a traversal tool, and it is meant to be kind of a core part of your kit in a way it felt like Strand was going to be, where, when they were pitching Strand, they were like, it's all about zipping around the rooftops and, doing this and that. When in reality, unless there is an anchor point that is already existing, which there really aren't many of those. There are some in Neomuna, but like not even in all of the Neomuna areas, just some of them. And there certainly, I don't think, are any around the map anywhere else. So I think the Hunter has an aspect which creates a permanent anchor point or something that people can use, but without that, it is literally just a one-off thing. It is a one-off mobility move that, yes, can translate into a grappling hook or a melee slam or whatever, but that's it. So like it becomes not a traversal tool when you organize it like that. And I feel a lot of fear here. I feel like Bungie was very afraid of making Stasis 2.0, so they have launched Strand pretty underpowered here. And I can, I'm not asking for a Spider-Man Strand with 0 cooldown, with 0 restrictions on grappling, but this idea of a 30 to 90 second cooldown for the grappling hook like almost negates the entire point of it. And I'd rather just play this like a normal subclass and just throw a normal grenade on there. Because, you get in these situations where if you're trying to use it as a traversal thing, sometimes you are hitting enemies with it, but other times you just want to get over there. And you get over there, and now your character doesn't have a grenade or the equivalent of a grenade for, another minute. And it doesn't feel... It feels mechanically like other grappling hooks. I think they got the physics of it right. I think I've done some, in the campaign, some fun saves where I thought I was going to die. In any other subclass, I would have died, but I can grapple myself back up, and save myself. There's some cool things you can do with moving targets and, flanking enemies and stuff. But once you take it out of that campaign environment with those cooldowns, it doesn't feel at all like that in 98% of the rest of the game, because these arenas are not structured for this. There are not Strand grapple points almost anywhere, essentially. And the cooldowns are just grenade cooldowns. And this is also all coming in the face of massive ability nerfs that Bungie has also implemented. They nerfed a lot of the cooldowns of, I think, almost all of the grenades. I don't know about melees. But they nerfed discipline and strength, I think. They capped it at like tier 8 when before it was tier 10. The idea was that there was too much ability focus and it wasn't working. But what it's created instead is, this subclass where it just barely ever feels like you're using your charge melee or grenade, which feels bad on both of those counts because, you know, with the charge melee, it's supposed to be a combo. You're supposed to have access to 3 of those charges at the same time to do like a little blade slash combo, you know, with the Titan, or the little Scarlet Witch combo with the Warlock. And for the grapple hook, it's different than a grenade. Like it can't be equated to a grenade because it's not just like, okay, I can spam, you know, Starfire Protocol grenades or something for DPS. Like, it's not a DPS tool, even though you can do damage with it. It is supposed to be like a fun way to reposition yourself and zip around the map. It's just you can use it in such a limited capacity that it doesn't feel like that at all. And I'm thinking of like the Titan jet move, whatever it's called, the jet boost from Arc 3.0 that replaces the barrier, where it's just a short repositioning, but it feels good. It feels like a mobility move, and the cooldown on that is low enough, especially with high resilience, and it just got nerfed a little bit, and Heart of Immol's Light got nerfed, but it felt like something you could just, whenever you reached for it, it was there. And whenever I reach for my grapple now out of the campaign, it's never there, to the point where, like, why am I even using this at all? Like, I don't know what exactly needs to change here, and I don't know if this needs to be split between PvP and PvE, because they were afraid people in PvP would just end up being Spider-Man and zipping around and stuff. But, like, I will say, you know, this isn't like floating and shoot. This isn't, I know they did all this airborne accuracy stuff because Strand is this aerial subclass, but, like, in practice, that doesn't make any sense because, first of all, you have a ton of momentum usually when you're swinging a Strand. So trying to hit enemies when you're on like a momentum being thrown through the air is harder than it would be if you were just jumping normally and aiming. So I don't really think AE does much there. Second, the cooldown is so high that you're not even using it all that often. So it's not like it's just a constant aerial gunplay class like Solar Warlock or something like that. So that rationale doesn't even work. I would reduce the cooldown by like 80%. I'm not even kidding. And like if you have to nerf the damage the melee does or something, like, to compensate for that, so it's not just this constant AoE spam, okay, I guess, but, like, it can't exist in this format. And, like, I would almost say it should be its own thing somehow. It should be a different key mapping than the grenade, because it also feels bad to give up your grenade for that, I would say, and it doesn't make a ton of sense to me. Maybe that's a bridge too far, but, like, the cooldowns are ridiculous. And I know nobody has like the full Strand kit unlocked yet, and there's aspects and fragments, but like we know what the aspects and fragments are, and it is very, very hard for me to see Strand, especially the grapple, getting in a place that feels good enough to like use that as a consistent mobility and repositioning tool in addition to an offensive weapon. Like, I don't even think it's possible to get anywhere near the cooldowns of the campaign. And if so, it would have to be like 100% of your build devoted to that. Like demolitionists on every weapon, like every grenade mod ever, like, and it would be a little much. So again, it's day 2, and maybe just we don't know how to use Strand yet, but like the difference between the campaign version and the live version is astonishingly bad. And it sucks because, like, using it in the campaign, I know some people had struggles with it for certain boss fights, and it might need some more general buffs, you know, compared to the other subclasses, but, like, it was still very fun. Like, you could see the potential there. You could see how this is so different than all these other subclasses, and then you get it into the live game, and you're like, what is this? Like, I can't imagine, you know, using this long-term in its current state. So I think that is easily one of the most pressing problems with Lightfall, because this is the signature subclass. This is the first new subclass we've had in 2 years, and it is launching, I would say, very underpowered in a lot of ways, and conceptually, the grapple is just, I don't think it's what anyone thought if you're using the post-campaign version of it. So let me know your own thoughts about this. I guess we can have debates, but I have not seen a whole lot of positive reaction to the way Strand functions outside of the campaign, even if, you know, there's some fun stuff you can do when cooldowns are very low within it. But anyway, thanks for watching, and I will talk to you soon. Take care.